All right. Well, the short's called Melville. The official tagline is Marcus is dealing with some serious shit. To expound on that a little bit, it's just about a guy who is going through some things, and he goes throughout his day acting out as strangers, sort of not talking to his wife, not talking to his mother, and that's what it's about, is him trying to get something out. And the end of the short is him finally figuring out a way to express his feelings.
How was South by?
South by was a lot of fun. It's like a big, giant reunion, and you know, even though it's in Austin, I feel like the film community in Texas as a whole is a whole film community, so it kind of feels like a hometown festival, even though it's all the way down there. And it's a lot of fun getting to hang out with everybody and really great crowds, and being in Austin's never a bad time.
You guys find it more difficult to get funding for a short film versus like an feature film?
I'll let Red answer that.
Yeah, I mean, it's funding for a short film is kind of a tricky thing. People can do it a lot of different ways. You could kickstart a project. You could have an angel investor that gets behind it. For us and our team, you know, when we first talked with James about the concept for it here, it was something that really resonated with the type of story and what he was willing to do as a filmmaker with that. And then for us as a production company, we want to be developing new projects always. And so we looked at this as something that would be a really great way to be able to kind of invest in a project and as a short to kind of get it going. And then also, since we shot it locally and we're based here locally, it's we were able to lean on a lot of the community that helped make it possible. And so from, you know, a little bootstrap financing on our side and a lot of friends in the community, we made it happen. And Panavision and MPS are two great partners of ours on the commercial side, and they were huge to help with the equipment side of this. So.
Yeah.
Going back to the story, what kind of inspired this story? And you talked about how, you know, the struggles with expression. Were there any times in both of you guys' lives where there was a real struggle with expression that might have tied into this film?
Yeah, well, the inspiration for me came from all the men growing up in my life, my father, my grandfather. I think in the general sort of Texas and Southern masculinity is not geared towards expressing yourself. And so that was, you know, the inspiration for the character's sort of internal struggle. I feel like that's a very big problem in general. And so that's where that part of it, that character motivation came from, for sure. It's just from personal experience. And I'm the same way too. Like, I don't go around talking about everything that's bothering me. But you know, that's the great thing about being an artist, and it kind of feels weird when you're a filmmaker to call yourself an artist. But when you think of musicians and painters and artists like that, you know, they're able to express themselves in a very direct way, and especially with hip hop, which is what the short film deals with. It's a very unique and visceral way of getting your thoughts out, because it's very straightforward. You know, like a lot of music can be, you know, maybe a little too poetic or too metaphorical or anything like that, but I feel like hip hop's very direct and very easy to say exactly what you're thinking. And I always thought that was interesting, to deal with a character who doesn't talk much but used to be a hip hop MC, which is all about, you know, expressing yourself.
Kind of a follow-up of that, as a writer-director, you work with a start project with a director's eye towards the finished product visually, or do you just let something happen organically and sit down and write?
Yeah, for me personally, I always start with visuals. Like, I usually have visuals before I have words on a page or dialogue. And a matter of fact, dialogue is the thing I'm the worst at, and so most of the films I do have very little dialogue. If you look at my canon of shorts that I've made, there's not much dialogue, because I always try to think of ways to express a story visually. You know, I always just like to pretend like someone's watching the movie on mute and figure out, like, what would they get out of the story if they weren't listening to it. And so,
what was the production length, and what equipment was used in production?
So it was 4 days
of shooting.
Yeah. 4 days of shooting, and then a week or so of full-time prep, and then we shot on. Red Productions owns a Red camera, not related.
We're legally obligated to say we didn't invent the Red
His
camera.
name is Red. So we shot on a Red camera with, I actually used, I don't want to give away all my secrets, but I used some old Panavision lenses. I wanted to get a really sort of unique look on the film, so I used these lenses, anamorphic lenses from the late 70s, early 80s, that are the kind that are just kind of sitting on the shelf that most people don't use. And I think it helps give the film a very lived-in and unique look that's hard to get with digital, because digital's so perfect and clean. The last several projects I've done on film. This is one of the first projects I've done on digital in a while, and so I really wanted to try to just get some life in the image, some discrepancies, something that could surprise you, because it's hard to find surprising things in digital cinematography because everything's perfect all the time.
Going back to the hip hop, was there a particular artist you guys were listening to that might have helped with motivation in making this film?
Well, the lead in the film is a hip hop artist. His name's F. Stokes, and his style of hip hop, once I cast him, became the inspiration for what that character is. And then for me, it's all the classics: KRS-One, Nas, Ice Cube, those type of performers who I feel like are really amazing, talented artists, but at the same time really have something to say as well, whether it's socially or personally. So that would be the hip hop inspiration for me.
James also was an MC growing up. And
Yeah.
had a DJ
Yeah.
company growing up. So I was reading the script the first time. I saw a bunch of lingo in there. I was like, James, you used to be an MC. It's like,
Yeah,
a
that's
little
what
inspiration there,
that's
too.
what when I was 16 through 19 or so, that's what I mostly was doing, was hip hop, and then I sort of switched to writing and filmmaking.
So if you fleshed out this character, if you looked at it as a potential feature?
Yeah, we're actually looking at it as a series, idea for a series that we're fleshing out. Yeah. I don't know, what else should we say more?
yeah, I mean, well, kind of like you asked earlier about the investment side of a short film. It's like short films a lot of times don't make money, but we looked at this story as something that could have legs beyond a short. And a lot of independent films will do a short in hopes of doing a feature. In this day and age, right now, TV's in this kind of resurgence, golden era here, and we were also really excited about this type of story being something that lended itself well to an episodic series nature. So
Yeah, and I have to credit Red and Derek, the producers, for really sort of like bolstering my confidence in that. Like when I first talked to Red about it, I thought maybe it could be a web series. I try not to do shorts. I love to do shorts as a single work of art, like in and of themselves, which is what my first emphasis was in making this. But I always had an idea that there's more to this storyline and this character. But Red and Derek were, really, sort of challenged me to think of more for this story, that they believed in it. And so I was really to sort of wrap my head around, like, could this be a show that's like on regular TV versus just a web series, And so that's what we're doing now. I'm developing it in that way.
Going back to expression, you're dealing with a hip hop artist. Do you feel that the expression is more powerful singing or rapping compared to writing lyrics?
In the case of this particular story, the performance is the most powerful aspect of it. And I know that a lot of you probably haven't had a chance to see the film yet, but that'll make more sense when you see it. But it's all about connection, and when it comes to performing, the lyrics that you write don't mean as much on the page as they do when you're saying them and you're connecting with your audience in this particular case. And so I would say in that way, yeah, the performance is what matters most.
20 years ago today, Eazy-E passed away. He's one of the, fathers of, West Coast rap. Can you talk a little bit about your thoughts on him and his influence and where rap music has gone today because of him?
Yeah, I mean, let's see, I want to say I was 13 or something when I first got an Eazy-E tape or NWA tape and got really into West Coast hip hop. Up to that point, I was mostly listening to East Coast, and it was amazing, like just hearing someone talk about their experience in that way. And Eazy-E definitely, the amazing thing about Eazy-E is like he helped take the authenticity of hip hop and push it into the area of pop without being a pop rapper, which was amazing. And and his influence is still alive. All the people who worked with him, Ice Cube, Dr. Dre, they had their fallings out, but when they look at, now that some time's gotten in between that, I mean, they all recognize that he was a visionary in hip hop. And I think no matter who you are, what type of hip hop you're doing, he's on the list of influences. He wasn't the greatest MC, but he was a visionary producer, promoter, and I think you can't deny that for sure. Yeah.
Your synopsis is very short and direct, let's say. Is that from the hip hop sensibility, or is there another reason for that?
Yeah, I would say absolutely. That's, I was just trying to think of, I just wanted it to be something interesting and catchy and something truthful. Like, that's a very truthful synopsis of what the film is. And I was, pretty happy that I could think of something so short and direct as well that is, hopefully catchy. I feel like if you see that on a list of short films, you're going to wonder, like, what is that about, So that was but definitely that kind of sensibility, dealing with some shit in the hip-hop way, not in the bathroom way.
Do you think there's a tendency now to give too much away in the preamble to the film?
Absolutely. And I try not to make films like, in the M. Night Shyamalan way, where it's like once you know the twist, the film doesn't really mean anything anymore. And not that this film has a twist, but I do feel like you'll get more out of it by not knowing exactly where it's all going, and allowing yourself to be a little surprised by the journey that the character takes.
Yeah, that was something in post that I think we struggled with the most, kind of going back and forth on like how much to give away at what point in the film there.
Yeah.
Because it is very much like the way James crafted the story here. It's like an onion, you're just slowly peeling away until the end. So.
Yeah.
Did the story take a life of its own in the editing process? Like, did it become something a little bit different than we started with? And then also, what did you edit?
We edited on Premiere Pro.
Yeah,
right?
Sam Parnell,
our
editor, is on Premiere, and
I would say that I very much direct with the mind towards the edit, so there wasn't a lot of big surprises. There's nice little surprises that you come across. And sometimes, you always find the one or two scenes that in the script felt really important, and then you edit and you realize like, oh, we don't need this, and you cut it out. But the film as it ended up being is pretty much what I always imagined it being. I would say the biggest surprise for me was certain scenes that I ended up using, say for instance, mostly close-ups instead of some of the other shots that we do, because you get in there and you start to realize the emotional impact. And maybe I didn't think about it having that kind of impact when I wrote it, but you get in there and you start looking at the performance of the actors and you realize like, I don't want to cut away from this close-up. And I'd say that's probably the most surprising, because I don't typically like to use a lot of close-ups.